It's recording, babe.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us on this rainy evening. And welcome to the participants reading of the 2014 the inaugural Callaloo Creative Writing Workshop. We've been so pleased to work with all of you this week, and we love that you've contributed your work and all your feedback, and it's been a real pleasure working with all of you on behalf of the workshop leaders. We really appreciate you all accepting the invitation and giving your honest, critical, and constructive feedback. So thanks a lot. To start, Gregory Hartlow has said that he has some welcoming comments.
I just wanted to echo that our gratitude, not only on my behalf and behalf of my colleagues here, but on behalf of the colleagues who are not here, who are very much with us, Bobby Francis and Robbie Howard. All of us work together very closely to think about, to discuss, to hash out, like we've been doing it for 5 years now, how students are, what particular problems students are bringing to the workshop, what difficulties will we experience in moving students from one level of writing to another. And I'm sure my students will tell you, and I'm sure I've heard from about your workshops, that we've fought, we've struggled over the course of the week, and I'm really disappointed that we only had a week to work together. I think we're just getting to a point where we have some sense of the logic of the transition that needs to take place. I hope, and I haven't, obviously I'm very optimistic as I'm standing here. I wouldn't be speaking to you if I didn't want to reinforce my optimism that the seeds that we've been able to plant among each other now are going to take root. I also wanted to point out, Maz and I were talking earlier, and as with the other workshop leaders, we often are asked to screen for contests, and we're on the editorial board of Callaloo, and so we literally read thousands of manuscripts every year. And it's the simplest thing. We were saying this earlier, we can read within the first page and see whether or not this manuscript is worth the first few lines, whether or not this manuscript is something worth investing our time in reading further. And so it's very important to demonstrate a presence on the page that is going to get your reader, whoever that reader may be, to stick with the work. Right? And there's the thing that is most distinguishing, I think, is just a basic level of self-awareness. And so when we talk about, it doesn't matter what the content of the work is, it doesn't matter what the vocabulary that one brings to the page, it matters the sensibility and the sense of one's place in the world, of course the uniqueness of the voice. But that, I think, is a result of understand or recognizing that I am a writer in a lineage of writers, and that I'm contributing to a conversation that preceded me for many generations and will continue many generations after me, and that the reader is likewise conscious of that lineage. And the reader is going to say, where is this person fitting herself in to this conversation? And if she doesn't demonstrate some awareness that there is a conversation going on, that's a deal breaker. So this is just my kind of end note to say I understand how demanding we may sometimes have seemed, but that effort is toward the kind of mechanics of character that I think are evident in work, and that we clearly enjoy see turn turn up in more and different ways in your work over the course of the week. So, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rick. All right, so we'll have 5 readers tonight. We'll have, let's see, 3 fiction readers and 2 poetry readers. So we'll start with the fiction reader. Our first is Shakira Bourne, and she was in my workshop. So.
Hi. Is everyone happy now? I'll switch that. I'm going to be reading an excerpt from a story called Rockabye. As you hold his bloody, trembling hand, the boy tells you that his father used to be a policeman, just like you. You ask him to tell you about his father, just to keep him talking until the ambulance arrives. He tries to reply, but coughs and spits blood, and you tell him that it's going to be all right, and that he has to hold on, but you are scared because the blood stain on his shirt is growing larger and larger by the second. It has been 8 minutes since you called the emergency hotline to report the hit and run. As usual, you hadn't been able to sleep and were hoping that a drive around the island would calm your chaotic thoughts. You decided to take a right at the roundabout instead of your usual left, and had seen the car slam into the boy crossing the road. You checked your watch. The ambulance should have been here by now. The boy mutters that his favorite show is 24, not because of the guns and the killing, but because he likes how Jack Bauer always does the right thing and follows his gut, although it may hurt people. You resist the urge to tell him that isn't how real life works, and most people aren't interested in doing the right thing, and you need a sign-off sheet to follow your gut. You don't tell him that just a few hours earlier, a woman who called in at the station to report her abusive boyfriend was just murdered by him in front of her 3 children. She was a young, frail-looking thing, the kind of person you'd expect to see as a nursery school teacher, hugging the snub-nosed children and singing lullabies, or rolling in wild grass with her husband, kissing and whispering sweet nothings to each other. She just didn't belong there in her lover's house, a place where anger was widespread and a fist was the first thing that welcomed her when the sun rose. You don't tell him that your partner took hours to report the complaint, because he knew that the woman called every month about her lover, but always dropped the charges when they arrested him. That you had pleaded with her last month to let the law do its job, but she was too scared and confused to listen. And that today, when she called screaming that he was going to kill her, you had a gut feeling it would be the last time you heard her voice. You can't tell him that, so instead, you tell him that 24 is your favorite show too. He asks you if you ever killed anyone, and reluctantly, you tell him that you were forced to shoot a man in self-defense, that you told the man to drop his weapon several times, but he shouted that he would die before he went back to prison, and tried to pull a gun from his pocket. You don't tell him that it happened 3 weeks ago, and you haven't been able to sleep since then. You could have predicted the next question. After your friends and family thought that you had enough time to recuperate, they pulled you aside in the corridor at work, or while you were relaxing on the couch, and asked you how it felt to kill someone. Some looked at you, eyes filled with pity and concern, maybe wondering if now you've lost a bit of your humanity, while others reflected lust and eagerness, seemingly hoping that their turn to take a life would soon come. Have you ever had a dream so real that waking up seemed fake? You ask him, but he doesn't understand. You tell him that it was scary for you because you didn't feel anything at all, that you were numb. You feel a weight being lifted from your shoulders because this is the first time you've ever answered truthfully. You tell him that you never thought that a human could scream so loud, and that the scream stays with you, coming out sometimes in the wee hours of the morning while you're in bed. And when that scream pulls you out of your sleep, you need to take a few moments to figure out which state is dream or reality. You sit there for a moment, caught in a swell of depression and remorse, but then you hear the voice softly reciting something. You think it's a prayer, but as you listen closely, you realize that he is quoting the first line of the police code of ethics. You are in shock, and you ask him how he could possibly know that. And he repeats that his father used to be a policeman. He repeats what your boss and your friend and your mother have all been telling you, that you were doing your job, and that the man made his choice, so you barely acknowledge the comment. Instead, You make comforting noises and ask him to tell you about his father again. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Sheer. All right, our second reader will be a poetry reader. Invite Colin Robinson from Gregory Carlos workshop.
Guys, this is a poem that I wrote when I was young, and it's still a draft. Sums. My father manhood, straight, not like my own. Like he was rushing through the times tables, 2 wife, 3 children, 1 dead, 1 throwaway, plenty woman introducing himself just so, whether it's Juve morning or over the man dead coffin. I don't remember his small at all, except he voiced that early morning with a towel. When he parked up a van outside, was 5 I was, and he was pulling. I never know what was happening. Granny trying to hide me, she getting threatened, and it's the 2 of them pulling, 1 mommy balling, 1 plate, 1 sheet, 1 cup, 1 knife. She pick up 1 for him. She keep the towel, the type she missed for a week. I never noticed nothing missing, not even here. But mommy say he didn't want the champagne, she gave he half the wares. I don't know why the things were so important, the counting. I would have fight to hold he won, because his naughtiness to me now I 10. I suppose I understand his numbers better now I grow in, and my prick start bend, because people measuring how much of a man I is.
Great, thanks so much, Colin. All right, our third reader will be Heather Barker from Mazda Studio workshop.
Hello, I'm reading from And the Virgin's Name Was Leah. I saw a young woman being stoned to death on the thinnest strip of Oistins Beach. As I was walking home from synagogue, 3 young men were crouching in the sand, digging a deep, narrow hole with their bare hands. They looked like dogs scratching around for somewhere to shit. Other men dragged the woman to the hole. She was screaming and fighting them off, but they dropped some blows about her head before forcing her in, feet first. She was about the same age as my sister Leah. One of the men pulled a dark brown crocus bag over her head, but her hair, black, long, and lovely locks, spilt out. Another man packed sand in the spaces around her body, while the other fellows strained under the weight of the concrete blocks they held above their heads. A younger man kept wiping his forehead on his upper arm. I was close enough to smell his sweat mingled with the scent of offal. Maybe he scaled fish in the nearby market. The mob looked over to an elder in a long gray gown. When he gave a quick upward nod, they dropped the blocks, one by one, on the woman's head. Her cries became gargles as her blood, almost black against the fading light, slowly soaked the crocus bag. When her head was twisted off to one side, the young men dropped the rest of the blocks and ran quickly into the excited crowd. An older woman sank into the sand. "Hadassah!" she screamed, over and over. I'd watched stonings of women before on TV with a sad curiosity. They were mostly for women caught in adultery. This was the first one I'd seen up close. The elder's gown grazed the pale sand as he moved past the sobbing older woman, leaning forward to pat her head like she was a pet. She flinched. He stopped next to 2 uniformed policemen, there to make sure the sentence was carried out. They were skinning their teeth, pleased at a job well done. After all, they were obeying the law. The spectators left soon after. Some on foot headed back to the fish fry, while others drove off quickly in their cars. Hadassah's smashed up body stayed behind. It could only be removed by the grave diggers. What would Rabbi Elkanah have thought? He was the person who reminded me most of God. Loving, patient, real smart without making you feel dumpsy. An old man with a laugh that rattled his chest. He was reluctantly teaching me about the Levitical priesthood, unknown to my parents who thought I'd spent the past 3 weeks studying the book of Esther. Anyway, Rabbi was always reminding me that women cannot be priests. After I'd worn him out with my wives, I'd tell him I should have been a boy. He'd laugh and say I would think differently one day. I responded as any teen girl would, by sucking my teeth and cutting my eyes. When I got home, my parents and Leah were in the kitchen talking real slow and quiet. I hid by pressing myself against the partition that led from the kitchen to the front room. There was a funny feeling in my belly. At first I thought they'd found out about my lessons, but then I realized Leah was doing most of the talking, which was strange since she was the quiet one out of the two of us. Then Mommy started hollering and Leah hollered back even louder. Next thing I know, Leah was saying something about being pregnant with the Christ child. My head started to hurt. The scriptures had prophesied that Christ would come from the line of King David in Jerusalem, not Barbados. And though we weren't living hand to mouth, it would be a stretch to say we were royalty. Daddy was a carpenter, mason, jack of all trades. Mommy was a seamstress. And Leah was a 19-year-old university student with a hairlip. And that brought me to the real issue. If Leah was telling the truth, then why her and not me? Okay, I was only 15, but I was better looking and would have been a good king mother. I was also popular, recently inspiring girls in my class to let their hair grow wild. After reading the account of Samson, I'd stopped combing and cutting my hair. My afro was messy, but I felt stronger every day, and girls needed to be as strong as they could around here. We had little say in our day-to-day lives, and even less in our futures. Last week, one of the brightest girls had gotten married during lunchtime. No warning, nothing so. Our